I don't think that your sleeping arrangements necessarily are an indicator of whether you're in a good or bad relationship. And I don't think that they are in any way an indicator of whether a relationship's going to work out or not. Whatever works in your relationship works in your relationship.
I've been with my partner for about 4 years. He's 33, I am 27. Everything is great. But the one thing that I cannot do with him is sleep in the same bed. This is largely due to his snoring and sleep noises combined with my light sleeping. He would love to share a bed, but seriously, I just don't sleep when we're together at all. We always have great sex, have a cuddle at night, but then I just get up and go to my own room to sleep. Then when we wake up in the morning, we go back to each other and have a cuddle. I actually sort of low-key love
It's great. There's no problem here for me.
It's been a great arrangement, but I get really worked up and worried about ever going away together for Christmases or if we're going overseas. There's never enough room for us at my family unless we stay in the same room. When we do want to go and travel in the future, I think, do I have to pay for 2 different apartment rooms? This gives me a lot of anxiety, but then the fact that I don't sleep increases my anxiety even more. Is this a sign that it's not going to work? Or do we have to just keep making these extra arrangements for separate beds where we can? I want it to be noted, he has tried everything. He's undergone nasal surgery to straighten the septum or fix the snoring, hasn't worked. I've invested in so many different types of earplugs, also do not work. My friends seem to think this isn't compatible with a long-term healthy relationship. Help.
Interesting. I think it sounds like the dream, to be honest.
Same. I mean, I never sleep with my partner.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he's in a different country, but if you were in the same country, you'd sleep in the same bed. We need to normalize that it's okay to sleep in a different bedroom. Sleep hygiene, fine. My parents slept in different houses. Not my parents, my mum and my stepdad, Neil, who were happily married, lived in different houses. And they were married for 19 years and they just lived in separate places.
But also, we don't even have to really normalize it. It is normalized. 25 to 40% of couples don't sleep. This is expertly stated, don't sleep in the same bed.
Yeah. Where'd you find out those facts?
Sleep.com. No, I can't remember the website, but it was something that said expert.
I do love it when anyone throws out a statistic with real conviction, doesn't tell you where they heard it from. You just believe them anyway. I was like, yeah, sure.
It's from the Star Life section. It was the first thing that popped up on Google.
Also sounds very reputable. Can I just say, I mean, I know I just threw out there that my mum and my stepdad lived in different houses because that, I think, for a lot of people would be like, well, that's weird. It's an interesting one because at the beginning of their relationship, like when they had been together for 5 years or so, I remember my mum getting really worked up because she wanted one of them to sell their house and to move into a place together and live together like a normal married couple. And the reality was that both of them just had homes that they had for like the best part of their entire lives. Like the house my mum lives in was like our family home from when she was born. And so she was like, well, I can't sell this house, and Neil didn't want to sell his house. And so it just worked for them. They would do like 3 days on at one and 4 days on at the other. The reason for saying this is not to talk about myself, but it's to say that like whatever works in your relationship works in your relationship. You don't have to do the same thing as anyone else. And if you guys are still able to cuddle and you show affection to each other and it's not affecting your sex life and it's not affecting anything else about your relationship, then who cares where you sleep?
Well,
who cares? You can sleep on the floor.
I don't know many people that I feel like at the start of a relationship, you do it, right? At the start of a relationship, you get into bed.
Oh, yeah, you cuddle.
You have sex, you have a cuddle, and then you cuddle the entire night. And when one of you rolls over to spoon, it's like unison, you roll over, but you're never in a deep sleep. Like I bet if you wore your Whoop, you're not an REM ever. Like you are so consciously wanting to cuddle and you know, when you're like, oh my God, they're on my arm, I don't want to wake them. So you're like, you know, a couple of years in, you're like, fuck that, get off my arm. But now you go to bed, you have your cuddle and you kiss goodnight. And I would say most couples then roll over and get into their position or their space that they get the best sleep. So if you're doing that, then just going and sleeping normally when you're unconscious, then you come back in the morning for the cuddle. I don't get what the problem is. I think it sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree. Also, it depends on where you're at in your relationship. I mean, you know, we've got kids now. Both of our kids get into our bed every night. So like Lola comes in around 2:00, Molly comes in around 3:00. I woke up this morning, I had one child half laying on me. The other one was sleeping horizontal across the bed and Matt was in Lola's bed. He just gets up and goes into the other room. Like I don't think that your sleeping arrangements necessarily are an indicator of whether you're in a good or bad relationship. And I don't think that they are in any way an indicator of whether a relationship's going to work out or not. There's lots of people who get to a place where they love their partner, but their quality of sleep is something that is important to them. And they just decide that it is better for them. It's actually better for the relationship because they have more sleep and they are happier and more content when they sleep in separate rooms.
I grew up with a friend, like all through school, whose parents, we always thought it was weird, but that's because we were young and uneducated. Like you didn't have the exposure to these conversations. But his parents had separate houses as well in the same street. But they were married for like 40 years. But say like 3 houses down was the mum. Sometimes they'd go and have dinner together, then they'd just go back to their house.
Hear me out. It is weird, or it's just a rich person problem. Like it's a weird thing to do, or you got to be super wealthy. But imagine that we could all live next door to our partners. We don't have to live with them. You can have your house exactly how you want your house. You can have a wardrobe with all your shit in it exactly the way you want it. And then your partner is just directly next door. Would you?
Yes.
Like, would you do it?
I'd connect them with a tunnel.
Yeah, like you want like a door, an entryway. Yeah. They just have their quarters and you have your quarters. And you know what? Matt can go to the toilet or go into the shower and take his pants off and his undies and leave them as one unified thing on the floor. And I don't fucking care because it's in his house, not in my house.
Yeah.
He would be I reckon he would be the partner that would be so sad to hear me say that. But like, I think it's genius.
But it is a rich thing, obviously. Like they were doctors. They were really rich. People can't afford to just have 2 houses. That's not what we're saying. We're not telling you your advice is to go buy a separate house, but to go and have your own space. If you have an extra room in your house, utilize it. You're paying for it.
Okay, there's more to this though. And I think that just quickly to like wrap up this question, you've said that like it becomes a really big problem when you're traveling or when you're going to stay at someone's house because like most people, you know, if they say, hey, come over as a couple, I've got a spare room. They're not saying come over as a couple, I've got 2 rooms. That's not something that most people have the available space for. Mm-hmm. So I would say in those instances, especially it's your family, have a conversation with them about the fact that your partner really snores and that you're not able to sleep in the same room. Can one of you sleep on a couch? Can you book a hotel room? If you book a hotel room, book 2 rooms. Like I understand that that's more expensive. I understand that that might not be something that is an easy possibility, but I think if it works for you in your normal day-to-day, there's no reason why you can't roll that out in some way when you're traveling. And don't worry about what people think of your relationship and don't worry about if people think that it might signify something worse because you guys are very happy and confident in who you are and what you have. The other thing as well is I do think it's interesting how as we get older, our perceptions to these things change. Because as you said, Britt, I would have thought when I was younger that sleeping in separate rooms would have been like beginning of the end type stuff. And I think if Matt brought it up with me now and said, hey, babe, I've made the conscious decision I want to just sleep in a separate room ongoing forever, I think I probably would feel a little bit sad. But that's because for us, I think those types of things become a slow creep. Happens one night where you get a good sleep, then it's a couple of nights a week, and then eventually it just kind of evolves into you going and moving into the other room. So I think it's the way in which you approach these things in your relationship rather than it necessarily being, hey, I have a problem and this is what I'm going to do as a solution.
But then who in life ever said that all of a sudden you hit an age, then you have to share a space with someone in bed? Like, why is that a thing? We've just made it a thing that once you get married and you're couples, then all of a sudden you have to be together. Like, that's a rule that society just put on us. I've been sleeping in my own bed alone for like 15 years. For me, it's really hard when I'm with Ben. It's hard to have someone else in my room. But if I was going to, I think what I would do is I would probably feel sad if my partner came to me and was like, I never want to sleep with you again. We're good, but I'm going to go in here. I'd get it. But what I would say is the rule would be put me to sleep. Like, give me a back tickle, stroke my hair, and then tuck me in. And then once I'm asleep and I don't know, go hell for leather. And then you get up before me and come back into bed, and then I don't know.
It's actually so funny that you're laughing at that because my boyfriend and I literally tuck each other in. If we sleep, we sleep separate probably half the time because of various factors. I'm a bad sleeper, but he also sometimes does night shift and whatever. And our joke is, like, the first one to go up to bed will be like, come and tuck me in. Like, you've got to give me a cuddle and you have to turn the lights out. Like,
that's so cute.
It's a little bit childlike now that I think about it. But, and the person's question who wrote this in, I actually relate to it a lot because it's not just other people telling you it's going to be the end, like the beginning of the end and where's your intimacy and stuff. There's a weird guilt that you feel within yourself because you actually do wonder whether it is the start of the creep of like, oh, we're doing this more and more. Does this mean that we are going to lose our intimacy? Like, it's not just external factors. I think it's something internal as well, because we've been kind of conditioned to think that couples sleep in the same room and in the same bed. And I felt a little bit strange about it this year, being like, oh, we've slept separately for the past 4 or 5 nights. Like, maybe I should go and sleep in the same bed tonight just to kind of break that streak.
I like the way you describe that is at the start of the creep, because I do think that's probably what you need to be conscious of, is that we all know that we can become a little bit complacent in relationships, especially when something feels easier, especially when something feels as though we have like more autonomy or we're getting a better night's sleep or whatever it is. So long as you're not sacrificing the things that make you feel good as a couple, because it's just easier to go and just be on your own and do your own thing, that's when you start to exactly that drift. But I like that description of like, is it the start of the creep?
But that's why I said it's okay to sleep on your own if you kiss each other goodnight and put each other to bed.
I agree.
Because why do we have it in our head, even then when you said it, Keisha, why do we have it in our head like, am I losing the intimacy? Sleeping at night unconsciously and snoring isn't intimacy. You're not losing anything. If you've got everything, if you're bookending it, if you're bookending that sleep with the love and affection at the start, the good mornings and the love and affection, there's no intimacy that's happening when someone's snoring and drooling and you're unconscious. So like, I think we're conditioning ourselves to constantly think that.
Maybe it is a result of like good and intentful decision making. And I mean that by like, so I mean, not to bring up another example, but my grandparents slept in separate beds, but that was not a good indicator of their relationship. And the reason for that is my grandfather brought home a mattress this one day that my nan didn't want. And he was a stubborn old man, love him to death, Papa. But he brought home a mattress. My nan was like, I don't want it in the house and I'm not sleeping on it. And he was like, it's a great mattress and I'm not getting rid of it. And she was like, well, fuck you. And that was the day that she went and slept in another room and they never shared the same bed again.
Because of they're both so stubborn.
Yeah, that was my grandparents for you.
That is so funny.
Shirley May, mate, love you, rest in peace. But man, you were a stubborn old biddy. Yeah, she wouldn't sleep in the same bed. So he would sleep in that bed and she would sleep in the spare room. And I think that if it has happened off the result or the back of something being like a conflict in your relationship where that's become now the new normal, and you're just doing it because you actually don't want to be around your partner, that's a very different situation to it just being that your priority is having a good night's sleep.
Totally.
I have a little bit of advice for her on the nights where she has to go and stay in the same bed though, because I've had to implement this in my own situation, so own relationship. I have tried to make that as comfortable as I possibly can. So if I'm able to take my own pillow, I'll take my own pillow. I will take a headband that has headphones in it because I like to go to sleep to noise, right? So I'll take that with me. I'll actually pack some over-the-counter sleeping pills just in case. So if I'm feeling as though he's particularly snoring or whatever, I can just have half of that. And it's a little bit of like I just know it's there if I need it. You know, I know it's there if I need to turn to it. Don't necessarily have to take it, but it could be an option that you use because it sounds as though you've actually got a lot of anxiety about going and doing things like staying away, going for Christmases, that kind of thing. So you can do a couple of things to just like reduce that anxiety and try and simulate your normal sleeping environment.